I, Lamin Sowe,
I, Lamin Sowe,
do swear that
do swear that
I'll speak the truth,
I will speak the truth,
the whole truth,
and
nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, Commissioners. We're ready to proceed this afternoon with our witness. We're still following on the same theme, which is the institutional reform, especially concerning the prison service. Mr. Witness, just to give you a few house rules, is that you're here today to give your testimony before the Commission. We expect you to tell the truth and nothing but the truth. Everything you have to say here is the truth from your knowledge, and it should be more about the issues of the happenings at the prisons, especially during the periods of 1994 to January 2017. We expect you to tell us the truth, and should you fail to do so, there shall be consequences that you may face. And today you can choose to speak in any language that you wish, preferably in a local language, so that the audience that are listening can actually follow the proceedings. For today, I shall guide you before the Commission, and we shall go through the following issues. We shall talk about your educational background, your work experience, including your work as operations director at prisons, the procedures of the prison service and the procedure for admission of prisoners at the prisons. We shall also talk about the accommodation conditions of the prisons and the cells in particular. We shall also talk about the conditions and the standard of the food provided to the prisoners and any person that is detained at the prisons. We shall move on to talk about the death of prisoners at the prisons, in particular by poisoning, the torture of prisoners that are admitted in prison, in particular those who were politically interested in and were kept in the security wing. We shall also talk about the lack of adequate medical assistance or admittance of prisoners. We shall go on to the unlawful access of the NIA officers or junglers to the prisons at any time during the day or night as they pleased. Then we shall also talk about the nature in which the prison was used to dehumane prisoners. Then we shall go on to your arrest and detention. And after that, I shall hand you over to Mr. Chair and the commissioners for any other questions they might have to ask you. Following that, you shall be allowed and given the opportunity to say few remarks and any recommendations you may have. Are we okay? And
Yeah, I'm okay. Thank you very much.
We may proceed?
Yes, we can proceed.
Can you tell us the language you wish to speak in today?
Yeah, I wish to speak in English.
You want to do the English?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So for the record, you already know who I am, but my name is Hadi Dande Jabi, and I will be leading you in your testimony today. Can you tell us your names, please?
My name's Lamin Sowe, commonly known as Jimbo. Yes. I was born on the 3rd day of March, 1973, in Nemakuta village, Kian Central, Lower River region.
Mr. Sowe, can you tell us about your educational background?
I attended Nemakuta Primary School from the year 1980 to 1987, and I sat to the common entrance. I also attended Brikama Secondary Technical School from 1987 to 1991. I also taught as an unqualified teacher in the education sector from 1993 to 1995. I joined the Gambia Prison Services in 1997, August 1st. After my training, 6 months basic training, I was posted at the Central Prisons in Mile 2 at the security wing. a place where I served for less than 2 months because of a colleague of mine was posted at the DG's residence, and they have language barrier. So he was about to leave the job. That's Lamin Cisse. So when he told me, I told him, okay, now let's speak to the command so that we can swap. So I swapped with him. He was brought to the security wing. I was sent to the DG's residence on safeguards. This is morning, afternoon, night. In the year 1999, I was promoted to the rank of a corporal. Then I was returned back to the central prisons as a shift assistant, meaning I'm an assistant to a sergeant. When the sergeant is absent, I will take over. In the year 2002, I was promoted to the rank of a sergeant in charge of the gate lodge. This is the place where it's the first starting of prisoners, convicted prisoners when they come. I will take care of them, and I will be monitoring the activities of the prisoners and officers, their movements. Then in the year 2005, I traveled to Darfur on a peacekeeping mission as a police advisor. Then I returned back in 2007. I was redeployed to Chanjambre prisons for a period of 7 months. Then I was brought back to Mile 2. Then again promoted to the rank of a chief officer, meaning chief officer in charge of both junior officers and prisoners. Then in 2009, I was promoted to the rank of a superintendent and assistant operation commissioner. Assistant operations to the then commissioner of operation, the late Usainu Kolye. In the same 2009, I was fortunate enough to travel to South Sudan on a peacekeeping mission as a police advisor under the United Nations. Whilst I was in the mission in 2009, 2010, 2011, before my return, there was a director who came in, Malamin Chaju. He promoted me in my absence to the rank of a chief superintendent. When I came back, I was acting operation commissioner, and Usainu have passed away. I made the position vacant, so I was made acting commissioner of operation. The same 2011 up to 2012, I was dismissed in 2012. You see, so I was off track. It was when Bora Colley took over from David Colley. When he came after conducting his tours, normal rounds to see the prison facilities, he started work immediately. So after 2 days, I was in my office. I received a call that I should hand over to one Commissioner Lamin Fall. I handed over the operations office to him, and I was moved to all Joshua prisons at the adult wing.
Can you tell us what year that was that you were reinstated?
This was 2002. I was reinstated in 2013.
Continue.
Yes. I continue with 2013? Okay, thank you. So in 2013, I was reinstated back to the prisons with my rank as chief superintendent and back to my portfolio as acting commissioner of operations. The same 2013, I was promoted to the rank of commissioner of operations, the title which I hold. In 2014-15, I was dismissed and reinstated in 2016 during the impasse as Commissioner of Operations again, title which I hold up to date.
Thank you, Mr. Sowe. So it is therefore correct to say that since the year of 1997, you have actually been in some form in the service, especially in the prison service.
Yes.
That is correct?
It's correct.
Okay. So that means your experience in the service of the prisons.
Very well.
From your understanding, can you tell this commission what you understand as a prison service recreational officer? Your roles. What do you understand as your roles?
Our roles as prison warders are the 3 R's. This is to reform, rehabilitate, and reintegrate prisoners back to society. These are the 3 R's that normally a normal prison should stand on.
You just used an interesting word. You said normal prison. Is that indicating that our prison service here in the Gambia is not normal?
No, I will come to that. Maybe, because of certain circumstances, things were not done in the way they were expected. You see.
So from your understanding, basically, it's that the inmate should be kept in a certain standard that when they leave, they would be better persons.
That's it.
In society.
That is how it should be.
Okay. Is that how it is understood by most officers in the service?
That is what should be put to all the officers from the recruitment training ground.
You didn't answer my question.
Pardon?
You didn't answer my question. My question is that how most of the officers in the service understand the prison service to function?
Yes, that is how it should be. Yes, that is how they understood it. Maybe it's because of conditions and maybe they fear certain things, they cannot do what is expected of them.
Thank you. You have also mentioned that at some particular point you were actually placed at the residence of the then DG.
Yes, sir.
David Colley.
Yes, sir.
At what point were you also his orderly?
Anyway, I have never been attached as a permanent orderly to David officially. During my guard at his residence, David was somebody who will not sleep at night. So, and he will always like to find officers sleeping so that, he will reprimand them, or sometimes he will even beat officers physically when he finds them sleeping at night. I, for one, I was there, I have never slept at night. It was only once he found me sleeping, and when he asked me, so why are you sleeping today? I told him since I closed from work, my wife was sick, and I was busy taking my wife to the hospital. So obviously, I cannot sustain today without sleeping. So he told me that you should have told me that, then I will call the headquarters, they will send somebody, and you will be on off duties.
Thank you, Mr. Sowe. Mr. Sowe, my question was, at any time during your service, especially when you were placed at the residence of David Colley, did you at any point act as an orderly for him?
No. It was when I was brought back to the headquarters. I would be doing my work, and when he want to go out, he would request me to come, and I go with him. We go out. If he comes back, he goes back to his office, I go back to my post place.
So we can therefore say that he had confidence and trust in you.
Yeah.
So he used you sometimes as an orderly.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sowe. You've told us that you're head of operations.
Yes, sir.
And you've been head of operations over the years that you have been at the prison service.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell us the procedures that are to be used to admit any person in prisons?
Under normal circumstance, every prison should have 2 categories of prisoners. These are: 1, you are either a remand prisoner or you are convicted by a court of law. But in the previous, it was not like that. We have 3 categories because we have remand, convict, and detained prisoners. When these people are brought, their first point of contact is at the main gate, where they should be booked, their entry and escort. Then they will go to the gate lodge. The gatekeeper will also receive them. If it is a convict prisoner, he will find out whether the warrant, the name that is in the warrant, is the name. It belongs to that name belongs to the prisoner. So when the prisoner accepts that it is his name, and the charges are read to him, he accepts that, yes, these were the charges that were read to me in court, then is where admission starts. He will fill it in a Gaulas receipt for the police officer and give him the receipt. Screen the prisoner thoroughly to make sure that he doesn't come with any harmful thing inside the prisons. But the screening is not done at the gate lodge there. There is a separate corner where the prisoner will go with the officer, and the officer will do this screening to his satisfaction. From there, the police officer will proceed with the prisoner to the reception office, where further admissions will be made, and the properties that the prisoner came with, those properties will be booked in the property book. The officer will witness that, you know, these are the properties that this prisoner came with, and the officer will be will go.
So you're talking about when it's a convict?
When it is a convict.
So when there's a committal warrant for them to be remanded, is it the same procedure?
It's the same at the remand wing too.
So at the end of the day, there is a document that needs to accompany the person that's to be admitted in the prisons.
That's it. This is to tell the policeman, when he goes back, a duplicate is left in the prisons, in the receipt book. When he goes back, that's the receipt he is going to show to his authorities to ensure, assure them that he have delivered the prisoner to the prisons. Then the duplicate is left in the receipt book in the prisons. But, sorry, okay. But on the side of detainees,
we will get to that in a bit.
Okay.
We'll get to the part of the detainees. So then at the time when they come in and a document is brought, what is the latest time that a person can be admitted in the prisons, according to your regulations?
Yeah, according to the prisons regulations, by 7 o'clock, all movements are ceased. Nobody goes in, nobody comes out, unless otherwise a prisoner is sick and the medic officers deem it necessary that he have to be taken to the Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital for further treatment.
So apart from a prisoner being sick, nobody is allowed to leave or enter the prison after 7 p.m.?
Yes.
Thank you. Can you also tell us what is the procedure for releasing of prisoners?
The procedure of releasing prisoners is, they are normally discharged. You know, when somebody is convicted, you know, there is the likelihood that you might have a remission or license. This is based on if you are a Gambian. That is something that only Gambians enjoy. With the remission, that one is in the hands of the prison authorities, but it depends on your behavior whilst you are in the prisons. If you behave good, you don't have problem, you don't have problem with your colleagues, inmates, and you don't have problem with the officers, you don't offend the law, your remission, you will get it. But on the side of license, that one is halfway in our hands. We can recommend. We recommend you, we write, and we send it to the ministry. So it is left with the ministry to make the approval and send it back to us. As soon as it is back to us, we will act, release you on license, and hand you to the nearest police station, you see, where you will be reporting on quarterly basis.
Thank you, Mr. Sowe. It is actually covered under the Act, what he just explained, Mr. Chair, that you have the authority to recommend some sort of pardon for a prisoner, but it's kind of like a probation. Do you exercise that in this system?
Yes, we used to exercise it in the system. You see, provided that, because prisons, like any other institution, we also have rules and regulations that governs both prisoners and officers. And prisoners have their charge book, officers have their charge book. When prisoners commit offenses, there is a book that they are charged and their cases are heard by the chief officers. If it cannot be managed, it will be brought to my desk. Where it is above me, I will forward it to the desk of the DG for further action. Likewise, officers. So if you are a prisoner and you make sure that you avert, that you don't fall into any circumstances where you will be put in that charge book, there is the likelihood that your remission or your license will be given to you. Because if you are admitted, we will tell you upon admission.
Thank you, Mr. Sowe. Now that you've told us about the procedure for admitting of persons into the prisons, can we talk about the categories of prisoners that are allocated for under the law?
Yeah, under the law, there are only 2 categories of prisoners that are allocated to be in the prisons, like I mentioned previously. You are either a convict prisoner or a remand prisoner going through trial. But it was not like that before, during the former regime. We used to have these detained prisoners who will be brought, and they will not come with any warrant. These people will just come and tell you that these are executive directives from the office of the president. And
so when you say from the previous regime, you're trying to tell us from the year of 1994 to 2017 January.
Very correct.
You had a 3rd category of detainees.
Very correct.
You may continue.
Very correct. So when they are brought, you have no right to reject them, because if you reject them, you will fall into a problem. All you can do is to admit them, get their properties. Some of them you will not even know the offense that they have committed, unless maybe after the personnel who escort them, the NIA personnel who escort them, when they leave, that's the time they can steal and tell you that this and this is what I'm alleged for. And they are kept at the security wing. Normally, they don't come with enough clothes, you see. So, and they are not given right to visits, and they don't go to court, because you don't know when they will be needed to court. You will be there keeping them until when they say, release Mr. X, you release him, or when they say, take Mr. X to court, or when the NIA themselves comes for them.
Mr. Sowe, was it lawful to actually detain these persons in the prisons?
No, it was unlawful, madam. It was very, very unlawful, but, you know, there's nothing we can do about it as prison wardens. It was above us. But some of them will be there until their clothes will be even worn out. It is we, the prison officers, who will manage and get them clothes and give them.
Mr. Sowe, was it also lawful to admit them without any documentation?
No, it was unlawful. It was unlawful, but it was the order of the day. It was very unlawful, because they don't have either a remand warrant, neither a convict warrant.
Did any of you officers try to actually not admit any of these persons when they were brought into the prisons at any time?
Not to my knowledge, madam. Because if you try to do so, you will have a serious problem in those days.
Can you shed light on what those problems would have been?
Yeah, if you are lucky that you are fired from your job, you thank God. Because I was not present in 2007, but I was informed that one Ibrahim Asise, he was a sergeant then, who works with the drug squad at this present moment. One time, you know, rejected Lang when he was taken, Lang Tombong, when he was taken by these NIA officers and brought back, or Jongulas, I don't know. When he was brought back, Sise does not want to accept him back because it was against our standard procedures. If a prisoner is in a certain standard, you have to ask for his medical papers, or you request that let him be taken to the hospital. You see, when he rejected, you know, they nearly shoot him, and he ended up losing his job.
So out of all the officers, it can be said that one stood up on his ground and said he would not admit a detainee.
Yes, he said, yeah.
And because of that, he was fired from his job.
That's it.
You've also told us that the detainees were treated in a special way.
Yes.
In that special way, can you tell us where were they detained in the prisons?
They were detained at the maximum security wing. The special way I am referring to is that they are not privileged to have visits like other prisoners, and they are not privileged also to have outside food because they are not convicted, you know, like the remand prisoners from their family members that will keep them going. And some of them, even, you cannot even take them to the hospital because, you know, it's a risk.
Can you tell us the conditions that existed at the maximum security wing?
The conditions that existed at the maximum security wing, definitely, madam, they are very horrible because, you know, these are very small cells in size, and, you know, they have a concrete slab, that's the bedding where the mattress is put on.
Can you kind of give an estimate of how big the cells were?
The cells will be more than, if it is not to the size of this table, it cannot be more than this. It's very small. I cannot estimate it in meters because I'm not a masoner, but all I know is it's not that much a big cell.
Can you tell us, like you said, from the table, so does that mean that was the length?
That
and
was
what would
the
have been
length.
the width?
Yeah, it's squared. It's squared.
It's squared.
Yes.
Okay.
It's squared.
Continue to describe inside the cell.
And the door have a small hole, very small hole in front. That is the ventilation. It have a small window behind on top with burglar proofs. So at night, you are given a bucket that is called the chamber pot. Can I go on? Okay, that is called the chamber pot. This is where you do everything of yours until daybreak, when the door will be open and you go and empty it, re-clean it and bring it back. So you know that one is not very much comfortable. It's not as that of the main yard, whereby it is, the main yard is a big hall. They have their own toilets. At night, you can just get up and walk to the toilet and come back.
During your time as operations director, can you give us a rough estimate of how many people had been unlawfully detained at the maximum security wing?
Madam, that is too much. It's too much because some times ago, mile 2 alone, the prisoners we will have, mile 2 alone, both remand, convict, detainee, will rise up to 1,000. As I'm speaking to you today, we have gone down far beyond that, you see. As I'm speaking to you today, there is no detainee. But definitely, people were just coming in and going out.
Did you have enough cells to keep the people that were coming in and out? Because the way you're saying it, it seems like it was a huge number.
Yeah, it was a huge number, but we have enough cells because number 5 alone have 99 cells. That is number 5 security wing alone. Then you come to number 4. Then you have number 7, that is just a hall, but it's not meant for detainees. That one is meant for convict prisoners. Like if they cannot fit in the yard, we bring them there. Then you have number 1.
So you're therefore telling this commission that the cells were in a condition that were inhumane?
Yeah, it was very inhuman, definitely. It was very inhuman.
And they were used to detain people in a form of punishment?
Definitely. Detained prisoners, their detention was very, very unlawful.
And would you also say that the punishment was done by a particular directive or individual?
No, it was done by a particular directive, an individual, and that is the head of state. Because when you say executive directives, that's the president, and that was no other person other than Yahya Jammeh at the time.
And were these activities only conducted by Yahya Jammeh?
Yeah, not only Yaya Jammeh, to us as prison wardens, we receive our directives from the then director, David Colley, you see, which we believe he also received directives from the president.
So, Mr. David Colley, you may drink.
Yeah, thank you.
So you are informing this commission that Mr. David Colley used to receive directives for the then President Yaya Jammeh.
Yes.
And by those directives, he executed it through the other officers who were actually serving the prisons.
Yes.
And by so doing, persons were brought in without a committal warrant or a court order, and they were detained.
That's it.
Detained in a form where their family members would not even know.
That's it.
And they had no communication with the outside world.
Definitely, no communication.
Thank you. At this point, I would like to move to the next issue, which is about tortures that happened in the prisons. Can you tell us about it?
Yes, the tortures that happen in the prisons, definitely, I had them during after my reinstatement in 2016, when the then Interior Minister, Honorable Ahmad Fatou, came on round to the prisons. As soon as we entered the security wing, prisoners were shouting and they were talking about the way they were maltreated by the then Operation Commissioner who succeeded me when I was dismissed. That is Ibrahim Jammeh. So when we went to the yard, the same thing. So we couldn't reach to the remand because the minister was called to go. I personally convinced the Justice Minister, Batambedu. I say, I want you please to follow us to the remand, to go and see the condition of the remand prisoners so that at least you can think something about us. So few days later, the police came there, an investigation team came there. Ibrahima, Malantamba, and some officers were carried to Kairaba station on investigation. Up to now, the investigation is not finalized, and they are also not back.
So they're currently on suspension?
Yeah, I believe, because I'm not seeing them.
So apart from the tortures that we're talking about in the main wing, can you tell us about the tortures that were happening at the security wing?
Yeah, I can't actually tell you exactly that I witnessed the tortures. I also heard them because these people, according to what I heard, they were not doing these tortures inside the main yard, neither the security wing. They said they were carrying these prisoners across the road to the administrative headquarters behind a building, and is where they were torturing them.
Can you give a bit of an explanation? When you say the administrative quarters across, what do you mean by that?
This is where the office of the Director General and Director of Admin, Commissioner in charge of stores, and other offices are. It's only the office of the operations and the chief officer that is at the side of the prisons.
So if I may understand you well, what has happened over the years is that the office of the DG, plus the director for food, etc., was moved and constructed opposite
yes.
the Mile 2 prisons.
Opposite the Mile 2 prisons.
Okay. So your understanding is that the said detainees were actually taken out from the cells and taken to the new headquarters.
Good.
And were tortured at the back.
That's it.
Can you tell us who used to carry them out and around what time were they carried out?
Anyway, with the ones that were tortured by the prison officers, according to the prisoners themselves, it was Commissioner Ibrahim Jammeh and his team who used to carry them there. Then I was not in the system. I was dismissed.
You've told us about procedure. I would like to take you back a bit on that.
No problem.
What officers are allowed to take out prisoners from the prisons?
It's only police officers, draw squad officers, let's say these Cadi court people or people from, officers from the High Court.
So it is therefore correct to say that it was unlawful for the NIA officers or the junglers to enter the prisons and remove persons.
Very unlawful, madam.
But they were still given the right to enter.
Yes, for me, they have never met me there, but I know if they were given right to, it was out of fear, because these are people, the way they will come, if you say you will reject them in, is possibly they might blow your head even, but they have to enter. And it's because of the directives that we used to have before they will come, because the director will always be, the then director, David, will always be aware that these people are coming. So he will filter the same directives to the officers, and the officers, they will be left with no option other than to comply.
So would it therefore be correct to say that David Colley gave more authority and power to persons who under the law are not allowed to enter the prisons?
Very correct. You are very correct.
Thank you. So we may move on to the next topic, which is about the food condition of the prisons. Can you tell us about the food that was served in the prisons?
Yes, I can speak about the food. The food condition of the prisons in the previous was not good. Definitely, I'll be very frank to you, because the prisoners, the food that they normally complain about that they cannot eat, or when they eat, it gives them a problem. That one is the pap. The pap is prepared in a way that it will not be easy for any normal person to eat, because the pap that is to be consumed tomorrow in the morning will be prepared this evening, and it will be left on the stove, not in a refrigerator. So in the morning, the officer in charge of the cookhouse, he knows whether he put water or whatsoever, just to make sure he stirs it and he serves it like that. So, and that resulted to a lot of sickness, biri-biri, swollen legs, you see, which, if not addressed quickly, can lead to the sudden death of a prisoner.
So, Mr. Sowe, you're telling us that this food was prepared overnight?
Good, yes.
And in the morning, water would be poured into it?
Into it, yes.
To mix it and make it softer?
Good.
And be served to the inmates?
That's it.
Which is of very bad quality?
That's it. It was a very,
and
very
poor
bad,
malnutrition?
Very bad quality. With the food that they cook there, there is an officer who is in charge of the cookhouse. Though being the operation, sometimes I will work there, but this officer is a senior officer who is directly responsible, and he also has some officers under him that he commands. The food is prepared by the inmates under the supervision of the officers, from the preparation to the cooking to the dishing, up to the escorting up to the cells, handing over the food to the inmates. So he might be in a better position to explain those procedures than I do.
Can you, though, tell us how those that cook, the inmates that cook, how are they chosen?
Anyway, I know they are collected from the cells. Whether they sacrifice that I know something about cooking or not, that is not up to my knowledge. The officer in charge of the cookhouse may have a better knowledge than that. But I can remember one time when we had a problem in the cookhouse, the then deputy director of prisons, Mr. Jara, have to walk inside the main yard and ask the prisoners who among you have first-hand knowledge of cooking here. So people volunteered, and we were lucky to have one Lamin Sanyang who said he one time cooks at the hotel. So he was taking with other people to see that the problem is sorted out.
Did the food improve?
Yeah, it improves a little bit then, because it's like you being the officer manning the cookhouse, before the discharge of other prisoners, it is your responsibility to recruit other prisoners so that these ones to be discharged will be training them along. Before they will go, these people will also have a clue of how to cook under your supervision.
Thank you, Mr. Sowe. So apart from the bad quality of the food, were there any issues of poisoning in food in the prisons?
It could be, but it's not up to my knowledge, because being the Commissioner of Operations, if certain things are not brought to my knowledge, I will not be aware of them. But I heard it over Sana's testimony here that, one Yaya Jaju poisoned his food, and he was fortunate enough to be informed by one prisoner that not to eat the food. But if it happens, it shouldn't be.
During your time as operations director, you've never had an inmate who has actually complained of some sort of food poisoning?
Me? No, I did not.
So all your inmates, none of them have ever been sick of diarrhea, vomiting, some stomach problem?
They could be sick, but if they are sick, that one, for me to know it will take a little bit of time, because that one, the medical officers are the ones that are directly dealing with them. It's like if you are sick, you will complain. There is an officer who is taking care of you. Complain to him that I'm sick. The officer will, one, either make sure that you are escorted to the clinic, or he demands the clinic officers to come and see you and see what they can do about you.
So after they're attended by a medical officer, don't you get a report of what was actually wrong with them?
No. I don't get those reports, unless if maybe the medical officers, they have issues like, they feel, these prisoners should have A, B, and C, and those are not available with them. They will come to me, then we'll contact the relatives. In the event the relatives are not around, we will see how best we can dip in ourselves and see that it is sorted out.
Mr. Sowe, if I may also just better understand, as the head of operations, are they not to report to you on daily basis of the runnings and happenings in the prison, especially those affecting inmates?
No, in the prisons, the way we operate, all those junior officers and officer in charges are answerable to the chief officer, you see. The chief officer is also answerable to the superintendent of the yard. Then the superintendent of the yard is the one who feeds me, you see. I also feed the office of the DG. Whereas there is a problem and they feel that they can handle it at their level, sometimes they may not even tell me.
Okay. But just as a matter of procedure and looking at all the rules in your regulations and your act, I would have presumed that everything that happens in the prisons will be reported to you at some point.
Yeah, it should be reported, but sometimes because of our commitments and other engagements, you see, sometimes even me, I will take it upon myself just to go around and walk, you see, so that prisoners who wants to see me and maybe they cannot see me will have the opportunity to see me and tell me their problems. Because there is a procedure. When they want to see me, when somebody wants to see me, he will report to the chief officer. He will book him in a choir book. Bring it to me. I will approve. Then the prisoner will be brought to me.
Thank you, Mr. Sowe. In your statement, talking about food, you had also mentioned about a death cow incident that was actually fed to inmates.
Yes.
Can you tell the commission a bit more about it?
Yes, this dead cow incident did not find me here. Then I was in South Sudan on mission. When I came back, I found the issue here, and the matter was in court. The judge handling the case was one Justice Coyote. It was between Musa Suso and David Colley. Yes. So I couldn't elaborate much on that.
Can you tell us who is Musa Suso?
Musa Suso is now the deputy governor at West Coast region. He was one time also a member of parliament for Combo North, you see, and he was also one time an inmate in Mile 2.
Can you tell us why he found the need to take David Colley to court?
Yes, according to sources, what I heard, this dead bull was dead for a day or two, after which, David brought this dead bull to the prisons, and it was cooked for the prisoners, and it gave them a serious problem, diarrhea. I understand some even lost their lives, according to sources, what I heard. So I know all that triggered Musa, because he was inside the prison then, all that triggered him to be annoyed about the whole issue. When he was out, he deemed it necessary that he should take David to court.
You just mentioned that some lost their lives.
Yes, according to what I heard.
Okay. Do you know how many lost their lives?
No, I can't say for certain. The medical officers might be in a position to give those figures.
So we could consider that to be poisoning in the prisons of inmates.
Yes, it's poisoning. It's poisoning, sure.
So it is possible that some of the inmates did not only die because of the said bad food or the berry, but it could also be because of poisoning that was being given to them in food.
Yes, it could be, it could be. I quite agree.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sowe.
Sorry.
If we may move on to the next point about medical attention being given to inmates.
Yes, Madam, prison is an institution that also collect medicine from the central medical store, like any other clinics or health center in the Gambia. We collect our medicine from the central medical store, and sometimes the medication that we request might not be the one that is available with the central medical store. So,
sorry, Mr. Sowe, before we get to the actual administering of the medication, can we start off from where if an inmate is sickly or not feeling well, what is the procedure that is done from there?
Good, no problem, thank you. If an inmate is in the cell, if it is in the main yard, which are bigger cells, and he is not feeling well, his first point of contact is the mess boy. This is an inmate who is given a little bit authority to take care of the cell. When he complains to the mess boy, the mess boy will draw the attention of the officers, the duty officers. Any officer who is near there, if they call officer complaint, you will go and listen. Then when the officer is informed, he will relay this information to the officer in charge. There is always an officer in charge who is in charge of the prisoners and the officers on duty at a time. Then from there, that officer in charge will either make sure that the prisoner is brought out of the cell and is escorted to the clinic for checkup, or he will send one of his officers to go to the clinic, go and call a medical, the officer at the clinic to come and see what is happening with the prisoner. This is how it all goes. If it goes above the management of the officers at the prison clinic, that's the time they will refer the matter to the Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital.
If I understood what you just tried to explain to the commission, is that if there's an inmate who is sickly, they would be given medical attention by either taking them to the hospital.
Good. The prison clinic.
Or getting someone to come and attend them in the prison clinic.
That's it.
Do you have specific medical officers who are allowed to enter and treat inmates in the prisons?
Yes, we have our officers who are trained as medical staff, though not that much qualified, but they can give primary medication. You see, we also have doctors who normally come on weekly rounds, and they will be checking prisoners. In the event that they feel that this prisoner need to be referred to the Edward Francis, they will inform our medics. Then those people will book them, and they will be taken.
Was the same privilege given to the detainees in the maximum security wing?
Detainees at the maximum security wing don't enjoy that privilege because it is always difficult to deal with them.
Mr. Sowe, can you tell us, when you say difficult, what do you mean by difficult? Is it difficult to get medical attention for them, or is it difficult to actually assist them, the detainees, in the maximum security wing?
Yes, it is difficult in the sense that, when you are dealing with them, you even being an officer, you are always having fear. You see, that if you don't mind much, you might end up falling into a trouble. So the only thing the medical officers can do is to give them the basic medication that is available with them at the prisons. But like referring them to the Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital, if you refer them, if you don't mind, you will have a problem.
Can you tell this commission then how they were assisted when they were sick?
Yeah, when they are sick, they will complain to the officer in charge. The officer in charge will inform the medics on duty, and they will come and see what they can do for them.
But Mr. Sowe, if they need medical attention outside of the prisons, how were they assisted?
That one is difficult. Unless clearance, the medical officers have clearance from the top, that is from the DG and from the executive, the office of the president. Because if I'm given the permission, I would like to narrate one scenario to you here.
Go ahead.
Okay, at one time, Lang Tombong was sick. He was taken to the Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital, and he was admitted at the A&E. This is after when I have even closed from work. When it was happening, I was at home. I was at home, I received a call from the former DG, David Coley, that I should go to the hospital and ask the doctors to discharge Lang and take him back to the prisons. You see, and this was very difficult with me because this is somebody who knows me, and I know him, and he knows my family. So when I went there, I have to see how best I can negotiate with the doctors, and they also have to put into consideration of, in case if there are any dangers, can I guarantee? I said no. They said, now, do you have a spacious place that is more spacious than this man's cell, so that he will be put in there? Then your medical staffs will be by his side. Every 20 or 30 minutes, they will examine his pressure and record it down. Then they will need those records first thing in the morning. I say, yes, we have inside there a ward that we call the infirmary, where people are admitted. So we took him there, he was there, and I attached a medical staff to him who will be testing the BP and recording it till daybreak. Then he will be taken back for further checkup.
Mr. Sowe, you have told this commission that it was difficult for you to take him back because you know him and he knows you and you know his family. I would have thought that it would have been more difficult because he was actually sick and had to stay in the hospital for medical attention.
Madam, this man was forcing, and he was telling me that these are directives from the office of the president. So obviously I was left with no choice, but I tried to guard myself very well to make sure that I don't have any confrontation with the doctor too much.
Well, with all due respect, I'm sorry that I have to say, but it seems as if people were more interested in actually carrying it out a directive than actually looking at the human right aspect of an issue.
Yeah, if you say that, you are quite right, because in those days, if you want to look at the human rights aspects too much, you will have a problem. Everybody was fearing one person, and that was Yahya Jammeh, definitely.
And therefore, it is also correct to say that the detainees did not have a right to actually get medical attention when they were sick, very sick.
They can have medical attention within the prisons, but referring them out of the prisons is something else.
And it was also correct to say that their lives were hanging on the decisions that were being made by either the junglers or the NIA, because unless they came in to attend to them, nobody could support any issues they had in the prisons.
Yes, because this, that's very correct. That's very correct, because these junglers, when they are coming, they come very unfriendly, and you never know in those days where the top gets information. So everybody was scared. Everybody was very careful of himself. And these people, when they are coming, they are armed. And for us as prison officers, we are unarmed.
And is it also correct to say that even some of these detainees were afraid of their lives, and because of that, they were even afraid of taking some of the medication that would have been that was being administered to them in the prisons?
Yes, that could also, it is also correct, because even some of them would not even like to be taken to the hospital, because when they go to the hospital, they never know what will happen. Because as soon as they will even feel more safe in the prison cells than going out. Because when they go out, the op is aware. What will be their plan next? Who knows? Nobody knows.
Thank you, Mr. Sowe. I think we'll leave it here for today, Mr. Chair, and we'll continue tomorrow, because I'll be starting on a new topic.
Thank you very much, Council, and thank you, Mr. Sowe. We will continue tomorrow morning. We will resume at 10 o'clock tomorrow. If there are no other points, my meeting is adjourned. See you tomorrow morning.
Domoro kadiate
boy janno sikes restaurant
e sai nakko be ninna dimba domoro kala janno
domoro seneyata adiyata topotoro fanan kende ma bije luntan during tamala abeka domoro ki janni adi manda wala de te ka we bijele anim fanan ka fadi jang ikono e fa e ka fa minne ko pastry anim bakery iko fanan be kalele badde lomba conference lomba workshop lomba ye fo pendin lo dunia kono domoro betama nyillom international o toda number 1
amanke ba domola jandama
e sa domo jang is atariya
wo mu kubandi
sa nakko sa futandin
e oto sa nakko be mu CK's restaurant
dafa nan janna mu yat ni manje dorom bijam
aban
CK's restaurant, known for best quality food and customer satisfaction.
Stewart & Co. Solicitors, a legal excellence firm in London that can help you with all aspects of your legal work. If you are looking at immigrating to the United Kingdom, Stewart & Co. can help you to set up business, buy houses in the UK, and will deal with all your legal works from start to finish.
For all your general immigration work, we can help you with that as well. If you apply for any form of visa, whether student visas, settlement visas, marriage visas, or a child wanting to come to the United Kingdom to settle with the family, we can help you to achieve your goals.
Stewart & Co. Solicitors, a legal excellence firm specializing in conveyancing, immigration, litigation, family law, personal injury, licensing, no win, no fee. Contact us today at www.sk-solicitors.com.
Oh, yeah. We have all the answers for your beauty quest. All the means to beautify you.
Welcome to Skincare Plus of the Gambia. Dalal lañ ak jàmm to Skincare Plus of the Gambia. Mbal Diala Skincare Plus of the Gambia. But where we're going to start with is one of our star products, 55H Plus Paris. We do have 4 different formulas of 55H Plus, starting from the Harmony Carrot product to Efficacate Replicate to Multi-Action, and also the formula that is perfect for those that are suffering from acne. The second product I am going to introduce you guys to is our milk protein, which is an excellent product. Main ingredient in this product is alpha hydroxy, which is known to be clearing the skin. In